Hey, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. I'm Beth Berghan, and I'm a leadership and communication coach. I work with executives, business owners, managers, and I often work with their teams as well. I also happen to be a #1 best-selling author, and I'm well known as a speaker at a range of different events. So I'm here on Tuesdays around about this time, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So we're just coming up to daylight saving here shortly. So there may be some changes in the time, but around about the middle of the day, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So last week, we talked about strategies that you can use as a leader to increase engagement and productivity in your team. And what it all came down to was fun. Like fun was the important thing to have. Fun and bringing more humour, lightening up the seriousness of every single day would actually serve you really well as a leader and serve your team and the productivity of that team. So one of the things that kind of flows on quite naturally from that, and this is the topic for today, is like I'm often asked about leadership and influence and how do we influence as a leader. And, actually influencing is really a powerful tool to have, and it's a positive impact that you can have influencing your team positively towards success. And if you can move towards an influential leadership with your team, then often that will give you much better outcomes than being very directive or being very authoritative. So, building a sense in your team, a culture in your team where they will naturally follow you is a whole heap better than actually always having to direct people. This is what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to do it. So let's have a look then at what we can do. We want you to get results. We want you to have fun. We want you to have a bit of a vision, and we want you to have a positive culture in your team. And so there are all sorts of behaviours that would be associated with building your influence as a leader. Things like integrity, self-awareness, courage, respect, resilience, compassion, being really agile, showing your gratitude, being able to demonstrate that you can work collaboratively. It's all about you wanting to inspire, to motivate, to guide your team or your business or your organisation towards the goals that they're wanting to achieve. And that's all about actively driving that change, actively empowering others, and actively creating a vision for the future. So you're either a beginning leader, an aspiring leader, or maybe you're someone who's already leading a team and wondering about how you can change what you can feel happening around you. Well, what I want to do today is to look at 7 skills that I know, or 7 habits that you can build that I know will build that foundation for you. There are many others, and I've named some of them already, and I'll name them again at the end of this. But let's just have a look at these 7 simple things that you can start doing every single day. Yeah, I want you to start with something simple so you can build that confidence up. Because what we need to remember is that influence is all about being respected, being trusted, and you being authentic enough so that people do relate to you and they do trust you. So the first one is probably the most important one, and this is to work on you, for you to work on you and your own self-belief so that you've got your own back, so that you're really confident in your own ability. Because when you're confident, you're easier to like, you're easier to trust, and your confidence then begins to rub off on people around you. So if there are areas that you're not feeling confident in, think about getting yourself a mentor or talking to your organization about investing in some coaching for you so that you can lift that confidence up. The more confident you are, the more confident your team is likely to be. The second thing is this: respect yourself. Respect yourself and respect others. That respect is kind of that common currency in the work, and well, not just in our work environment, totally in our lives. Everything has to do with respect. All communication, every interaction we have is all about that respect. It's also really important, and this is what I said earlier, respect yourself and respect others. It's also really important that you demonstrate quite clearly that you are respecting other people, but also that you are respecting yourself. Now, what this might mean is that you've got to set some boundaries. And I think it's really challenging. I know for a lot of my clients, what's really challenging is when they're thinking, oh, my door's always open. Yeah. However, you're under the pump because the work that you need to do isn't getting done. So have a think about setting some boundaries around that. I'm just working with one of my clients at the moment about setting those boundaries. And she was so excited the other day to be able to say to me, I said, no. I said, come back later. I'm happy to spend the time with you. Right now, I've got these other things that I'm doing. So we're looking at strategies for how she can get buy-in from her team to be able to set those boundaries. Yeah. The third thing is this: be curious. Be curious. Be curious about others. Be curious about stuff. Be curious about what they're doing at work and away from work. Be curious. Now, to do this, first of all, you've got to listen with interest. You have to listen with intent and with interest. Yeah? You also then have to ask clarifying questions because that demonstrates how well you're actually listening. So ask those clarifying questions. Then what's really important is that you show that you care. By being curious, by asking, how did your weekend go? By talking to someone, you're actively showing them that you care. And that will increase your influence. Yeah? The fourth one: simple, concise, positive communication. Influencing is not about baffling people with too much stuff. It's actually about communicating with them in a way that's easy for them to understand. It's easy for them to digest and kind of, percolate on or process. And it's also quite positive and upbeat. So it's much more about talking what can and will go right rather than talking about what might or what we believe is going to go wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have those realistic conversations where you're doing a risk assessment on something, but it certainly means that you're much more upbeat about what's possible, not about what's impossible. Yeah? That's number 4. The fifth one, and we've talked about this a lot in these leadershipization sessions: smile. Smile, smile, smile. Why is a smile so important? Well, it makes you approachable. It shows that you're willing to engage, and it's going to have a really big impetus on your influence because you're smiling. And, it's all about letting people know when you're setting those boundaries I was talking about earlier. Oh, no, I can't chat with you now, but happy to later. Smile. A smile can very easily take the edge off a comment that you're concerned about. And once you've smiled, change the subject, but smile, smile, smile. Show that you're willing to engage. Look up from your keyboard. Stop and look at people. That smile is all about you actually engaging with people and looking at them. Okay? Number 6, offer support without taking over. Offer support without taking control, because if you want to influence, you need to be all about empowering your team, not disempowering them. It takes a little while to get used to the fact that every time we solve a problem for our team, what we're actually doing is disempowering them. They become more and more dependent on you to make the decisions for them. Empower your team by offering them that support. Be prepared to get your hands dirty, doing the things that need to be done. Be prepared to be supportive and helpful without taking over. Follow their instructions for once, rather than having you follow, or them always following your instructions. It will work. Finally, we talked about this before on Leadershipisation many times. This authenticity, saying what you think, letting people know that you don't know something, being prepared to be vulnerable, sharing about things, sharing about your unique qualities, your values, your experiences, all while giving others the opportunity to do the same thing. Now, as I said earlier, influence is built on that respect, that trust, and that authenticity. So it's important that you're real. It's important that you put the fun in that we talked about last week. Now, these 7 are simply a start for you. And what I'd like you to think about is using them on a daily basis so that you can build, like stepping stones, build daily on these. And then you can layer over the top of them things like integrity, resilience, empowerment, leadership, intelligence, courage, all of those kinds of additional skills that will add to your influence. You can think about, what are the words that I need to use? What is the body language that I need to use to become more influential? The bottom line here is that to begin building that influence, you have to have the respect, you have to have the trust, and you have to have an authentic communication happening between you and your team. And we can go over more on those other additional behaviours and traits that you require to add to your influence. They're things that we can talk about into the future. So I hope you found that useful. Just a quick reminder before we finish for today, a final call for applications for my Leadership and Communication Accelerator. It's a 10-week program, and it's all about, I work with leaders to build their profitability and their earning capacity, to help them to get a better work-life harmony and to get more success through increased productivity or achieving of the outcomes and the KPIs that they want to achieve. So that's what the Leadership and Communicator Accelerator is all about. Yell out if that is something that you'd like to do. Now, thanks to those people who've watched. If you're watching a replay, #replay would be awesome. That just gives me the opportunity to reach out and check to see that I'm meeting your needs as a leader. But also, if you've got questions or comments, pop them in the platform that you're watching this on, and I will get back to you to answer them. Happy with any questions or comments that you might come up with. In the meantime, have an awesome